Was that for the thumbnail? The YouTube thumbnail?
Yeah. It actually captures it really good.
We're live on the podcast.
Alright.
Pulling up the Facebook Live. Whoa.
What?
You almost dropped that book. Do you watch Fargo?
No, I do not.
No.
And I've never been there either, in case you were going to ask that next.
Fargo.
Alright. For some reason, it is not wanting to pull up the Facebook. Oh, here it is. Okay. Cool.
Wait.
Alright.
Wait.
Ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, let me restart this.
Restart what?
Okay, now we're ready to go.
What did you restart? Do we have to say anything?
No, because we didn't say anything.
Alright.
That's finally did.
Is anybody out there listening? If you just comment, I think Nat Nichols said she's on her way to Fresh Market, and she's going to sit in the parking lot and listen to us talk back and forth.
For 75 minutes.
For 75 minutes, she's just going to sit there.
Yeah.
So I realized after our last podcast that if I don't wear something that looks significantly different, then they all start to just kind of run together if you're watching like the live ones. So today I'm wearing, this is not sponsored by Strict Press Media, but I am wearing a Strict Press Media shirt.
Strict Press Media did make our logo for the podcast, though.
So maybe it is sponsored in some way, shape, form, or fashion by Strict Press Media. So thank you to Rob Rivera.
Thank you, Rob Rivera.
Of Strict Press Media.
Of Strict Press Media. Head media guy. I'm wearing a black Rogue shirt.
Alright.
That's it.
Is Rogue going to sponsor this too?
Jeez, I hope.
That'd be cool.
I hope. That would be super cool.
Alright, let's hop into it, man.
Happy Wednesday.
So, yeah, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you too. I thought it'd be neat to kind of recap kind of past events or what's gone on lately. So, a couple weekends ago, not this previous weekend, but the prior, was the Clean Clinic.
Yeah.
And it oversold.
Oversold.
So initially, I think you said that we had slotted for, we were deciding to bring 8 people in or allow 8 people in, and we ended up having 10 people come in.
Yeah, because so many people wanted to do it.
That's right.
And then those went like that.
It was gone. So we'll talk about this later, but there is going to be like a next step after that. So that was good. Coach Gene has been sharing some really cool, success stories from that. I've seen videos going up on social media about it. So that was pretty encouraging to see all those people come out and kill it.
I think he said like 5 or 6 of the 10 people, at least half the people PR'd their clean, which is always cool. And then at least everybody had a takeaway that they could apply to their lifting. And, that's why we're doing it is, okay, can I learn something? And they ended up learning something, which is always super cool to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just 2 hours of dedicated work. Like, take some time out of your Saturday, and it's like, hey, man, I'm better at something I want to be better at. So it was really cool to hear his feedback. He was glowing the whole next week. He's still glowing about it.
You actually told me a good story about that, right? He just said it was, I don't know how you describe it. I don't know if you remember what you told me.
Yeah, I asked Gene the following Monday. I said, so because we're both in here on Monday evenings. I said, so how'd the rest of the Clean Clinic go? Because I saw the first 5 minutes of it, and he said, oh my God, and rolled his eyes, and I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be
this isn't gonna be good.
I was like, is he gonna quit right now? And then he said, sessions like that remind me why I do this. And I was like, man, that's so cool to hear. He's like, it was incredible, and then told us all the great things that we just told you guys, the listeners and the viewers. So it was awesome. Clean Clinic sold out. It was great.
Sweet. The next thing that we had kick off that following Monday, so we're a week and a couple of days in, but that last Monday was the start of the fall nutrition reset. And Steph was talking to us Sunday, and she's already got some amazing feedback to share.
Yeah, real.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. So I'm going to read, I'm going to keep it anonymous, but she's already got this feedback. I noticed that I feel better, feel stronger at the gym so far. Whoop recovery has been better and better. Fewer digestive issues, and already has lost almost 4 pounds on the scale. So this is nutrition reset started on a Monday, and she was giving me this feedback this past Sunday, so less than 1 week in. So that's pretty cool. And what she does with her people that she works with, one-on-one or in a challenge setting like this, is she's really helping them build habits that you can sustain for the long term. Because while that sounds really neat, like, oh my gosh, I'm already making this progress, well, guess what? It's not like there's this massive elimination or this big, huge overhaul that after 28 days or whatever, that things are just going to go back to normal. These are sustainable, lifelong habits that she is helping these people create. So that's just so encouraging whenever I hear stuff like that.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, a week, 6-7 days into it, and all those benefits. And it's funny, we always say, I always have conversations with people in here. It's like, oh man, when I tighten my back up, that deadlift felt easier. It's like, yeah, well, when you do things right, things feel good, right? So it's the same with nutrition.
It's just the basics.
Yeah, it's not like we're saying, you know, you're now eating 800 calories a day, like, good luck. You know, it's just like, hey, change some of these around a little bit. Let us know how you feel after a week, right? So and of course, it's much more than that. I don't want to discount it, but
no, you're exactly right.
You know what I'm getting at is that it's very simple, sometimes not easy, but simple changes to make.
Yes. And then lastly, this past Saturday and Sunday, CFG, we played host to the regional location of the Two Brains Summit. So I know we've talked about this a bunch on the podcast. So we had, obviously CFG was represented, the whole staff was there. And then we had 3 other gyms, owners come into the gym, and we basically, you know, saw some presentations from some big names, but really the benefit of getting everybody together is the in-between conversations, what I like to call it. So like the little breakout sessions, having good conversation at lunch, at dinner, you know, the next morning when we're kind of having coffee and getting together and really understanding what is going to take, you know, your business from where it is today to where you ultimately want it to go. And it aligns very closely to the work that we do with our members. Where are you today? Where do you want to go? Cool. Let's plot out the plan to get there. But there is something unique about getting together with these other gym owners because you realize, number one, you're not alone. You're not in this gym ownership business thing alone. And more often than not, you come away realizing that, okay, we really are doing a lot of things well. We don't have as many problems or the big problems that we like to think. And the issues that need to get addressed, we kind of know what to do, but it's like, okay, what does the implementation of that thing look like? So I'm always a big fan of asking people, you know, what's the one big takeaway or what was like your favorite moment? So I'll ask you, Mark, what was kind of your one big takeaway or something maybe that you've already started putting into action? Because that's really what matters.
So I say there's a couple things. Of course, we have 6 speakers over the weekend, 3 a day, and then all of the group discussion in between, and then beforehand and afterwards. I'll start out with the easy answer and say the group discussion is always so nice. So like you said, just kind of hashing things back and forth between different gym owners. And I know I'm not a gym owner, I'm the head coach of a gym, but hearing people and being able to articulate responses to those people that are gym owners and have thoughtful discussions with them, even though I wasn't an owner. I walked out of the weekend, I guess I told my mother this over the weekend is Pam, I told her I felt valued. Like I felt like in a lot of situations, even though I'm not an owner, it's just okay, like people want to, like, and rightfully so, they want to talk to you, like, and they want to hear your answers, but I definitely felt as though, like, because I am head coach, like, I'm here a lot, I see a lot of things, I have boots on the ground, right, and it's not to say anybody else doesn't, but I'm just saying my opinion, I definitely felt, like, valued over the weekend, and I guess that's the selfish reason why I like the weekend, but overall, just the group discussion is really good to hear, like, when people think they have problems, there are always bigger fish, right? And so it's right. Nice to be able to give advice and talk about that between people and just kind of be there and be a lighthouse, but also just be a friend to people or that I don't know what to do about this, or how do you think I should go about this? And that's where you kind of come into play. But I would say from a more practical sense, it was, there's a speaker, Chris Voss, who wrote a book that I'm guessing you're going to hold up and talk about. Boom, there it is, Never Split the Difference. And he's called like the master negotiator. He was like a hostage negotiator in the FBI, and was just like spoke incredibly, like articulated these really great ideas to apply to general conversation, or whether it's sales, or whether you're talking to a member that like is trying to reach a goal, whatever it might be. These are tactics and just conversation techniques that you can apply as a coach, that I was able to actually put in place, like actually starting that day, but then also that night, or last night rather, excuse me. And so it's just cool to see something that's going to help me, as corny as it sounds, like change someone's life, right? So it's like, okay, like we know somebody needs to come in here and do fitness and nutrition. How can I better articulate that so they understand that that's what they need to do? So those are probably my two favorites: Chris Voss's presentation and the group discussion. Not to hijack the podcast. What was your takeaway?
So I'll just real quick circle back to the Chris Voss thing. I think what I liked most about that is, yes, his book that I held up here is Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it, right? So he was an FBI hostage negotiator, but now he's basically imparting the lessons that he's learned in tactics of negotiating to help other people in any area of their life. Of course, we're applying it to, the business here at CFG, but more than anything, what I realized, and I was just thinking about this morning, because I think it's a conversation you and I have had before, really what it's teaching us is how to ask better questions so that we can help whoever is sitting in front of us in a better way, right? So maybe, let's just say 2 months ago, we're asking this line of questioning and somebody signs up and we give them some help, but really it wasn't actually the best thing for them. Well, now, armed with some different things and how we can truly understand people, meet them where they're at, we can actually get them much better resolution long term. So I'm fascinated much more so with behavioral psychology, improving my communication skills as a human, relating better to people, much more so than I am learning the newest technique for doing something with a barbell or exercise physiology. I mean, I've got a couple decades worth of practice in that, so not to say that I can't learn more there, because I certainly can, but I really think that, I use this quote a lot on the two-brain coaching side of what Teddy Roosevelt said: nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So you can have all kinds of knowledge, but like if you can't communicate the level of care that you're bringing to this interaction with somebody, then it really doesn't amount to much more than hill beans. So I really appreciated his talk, his perspective, and was super encouraged to see, the light bulb moments that you guys had, which was circling back to your question, like what was the highlight of the weekend for me, was just that. The fact that, number one, you guys could all take part in it, and number two, just watching and hearing all the light bulb moments that you guys were having, like, oh my gosh, this is such a great way that we can adapt and do this better and do that better. And that's ultimately what it all boiled down to, is all the feedback was, okay, here's how we can do this thing better. And really, what I would say for our members to take away from that is the fact that we've got a team that's fully invested in doing things better for everybody. And that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. We were actually able to have our entire staff there, which was awesome. Because I know sometimes, like, hey, we're going to have a meeting on this day. It's like, oh man, like, sorry, I got family matters, or something going on. So it was really cool that like all the stars aligned and we were all able to be there at the same time and bounce ideas off of each other, and it just allowed for a really like personal and like intimate connection between all of us to chat. And then, as we mentioned, the other gym owners that were there that were just incredible people, just awesome to be around. So that was a great weekend.
Yeah, so we'll shout those guys out. We had Dario and his wife Sophia from North Naples CrossFit, Clint and Macy Lowry from Sweat Factory CrossFit. They actually own 3 locations. I want to say it was Daytona, Cocoa, and Claremont.
Are they all called Sweat Factory CrossFit?
I believe so.
Okay.
I know they just acquired their second location like in December, and their third, I think it was right kind of in the middle of COVID, so it was a kind of unique situation they were talking to me personally about, so I won't go into details, but yeah, so they've got 3 gyms, 3 locations that they oversee. I remember earlier, I think at the very first part of this year, they sold their house, bought a motorhome, and they just travel from gym to gym. I think Macy was explaining to me that they'll spend like 2 days in a row at each location, and they just circle around.
That's so cool.
And so it's really neat for them to have that ability to do that because they're just so passionate about it. And then Chris, who owns Triforce CrossFit up in St. Augustine, which it was funny every time he mentioned where he was from, everyone's like, "Oh man, that's amazing." And he's like, "I guess you guys just really want to come to St. Augustine." So yes, Chris, we do. So if you want to host something up there, we will certainly support it and come hang out there. So St. Augustine is actually where Mandy and I got married.
Oh!
Yeah.
I feel like I knew that in the back of my head, but...
You probably did.
Yeah, you tell me a lot.
The first time, actually, that I had been back to St. Augustine was just 2 years ago at our 10-year anniversary. She'd been back at least 1 or 2 times with one of her girlfriends just for like a girls' weekend, because it's kind of a little bit halfway between like where her family and friends are from and live versus where we are. So, yeah, it's a great little town.
I've never been, but you told me that it's pretty incredible. That
It is. Cool to go it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
Of course, then Chris is like, he stays away from the touristy part, which is the only part that I ever really go and visit.
You're like, this is awesome. He's like, I hate it.
It's typical of like when somebody from my family in the Midwest comes here and they're like, "Let's go to the beach." Oh gosh, if I never see the beach again, it'll be too soon. You know me.
Really?
Oh, how do you not know this about me? I am not a beach person, Mark. No more. Never.
How do you go beach volleyball or beach dodgeball?
Nope. Done.
No dodgeball?
Nope. Done. I retired from dodgeball.
We're moving on.
Yeah.
We gotta change topics.
Get going before you get mad. All right. So upcoming events, we've got 4 that I'll call out real quick. Barbells and Bros is this Friday night, the 25th. I saw the list is filling up, so if you want to be one of the lucky ones to do curls and skull crushers, put your name on the list. So that is Friday night at 6:30. Free to all of our members that are coming. It's just something that we wanted to do to get people together. Albeit, like we talked about last time, we can't have everybody together, so we're doing a guys event this Friday, and then the girls event is going to be Metcons and Mimosas. That's October
10th.
At
Saturday morning. What
time?
10:30 a.m.
10:30 a.m. Mimosas for the ladies after the workout.
Oh yeah, and it says Metcons.
Oh.
Maybe you're doing 2.
Maybe we're doing multiple workouts, or maybe the mimosa drinking is a workout.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
And then we talked about the clean clinic. Now, the next movement after you clean the barbell and stand it up is the jerk. So we are doing a jerk clinic. And to be clear, this is not how to be a jerk or how to get rid of jerks in your life. It is the Olympic weightlifting jerk. So getting the bar from shoulder to overhead. So we're going to do a 2-hour clinic on that. I think it's around the 24th, am I right? October 24th?
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll get confirmation. I'm pretty sure that that's the day that Gene settled on for that.
Yeah. But
we will get confirmation. There's plenty of time, but yep, sign up because it's probably going to sell out ahead of time, just like the last one.
Yeah, we'll know by next podcast.
And then finally, Friendsgiving. So this is basically we host everybody at my house here in the community. And we just want you to come together, bring your favorite dish that reminds you of Thanksgiving. Last year we had, I think over 100 people at the house.
Yeah.
And Mandy was brave enough to say that we could do it again this year.
Nice.
So, yes.
She's an angel.
Yes, she is. She is an angel. Brandon Carver says, too competitive. Maybe that was in regards to my dodgeball or volleyball comment?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely too competitive when I played. Mandy will have to tell that. So maybe we get her to stand on the podium at Friendsgiving and tell my embarrassing dodgeball story where I didn't know that she would ever want to hang out with me again because apparently I am too competitive in that.
That wasn't a Relay for Life, was it?
No.
Okay.
Although there was some really cool pictures actually of all of us trying to take some kids' heads off at Relay for Life a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you had the game face on. You were.
It's kill or be killed, Mark. All right, it's kill or be killed. Take no prisoners. Are you not entertained? All those things.
Yeah, all that stuff. All the cliche quotes.
Yes.
All right, so we have quite a bit to talk about today in terms of listener questions. Are we going to set time limits? Or are we just going to go? What's the plan?
Well, we're already 20 minutes in, so, we've really only got 3 questions, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've listened long enough, this could be, you better strap in, people. You may be here for another hour and 10 minutes, but let's just see how it goes. I'll give you the wrap it up sign if we're going too long.
Okay, sounds good. You want me to start it off?
You can ask me the question and I'll start it off.
Okay, so listener question number 1 for this week. So regarding stretching and mobility. So it says, when should you stretch and for how long? I'll just kind of leave it there and let you go. When should you stretch for how long?
This is a common question that I've gotten, of course, over the years, time and time again, because it is a popular one. And most recently, we were talking about stretching in the post-workout, but then this particular person ended up asking, okay, what about stretching in general? Because, the old school, if you're of the age of, let's just say, 32 and older, the old school approach was like, you'd go out and do some static stretching, bend down and touch your toes, hold positions for 30 to 60 to 90 seconds, and then you're ready to go. So that has long since been debunked, but yet it still has stood the test of time, because I can't tell you how many instances where I'm just driving around town and somebody is getting ready to head out for a run and they're doing the old, stretch the calves, bend down and touch your toes, and then they start gallivanting around the neighborhood, on their little run. So when should you stretch and for how long? Number 1, yes, stretching is good, but the type that most people are referring to is what's known as static stretching. So like I just said, you're going to hold a position and you're going to hold that position, let's say anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds. Static stretching is best done, and this is also in all the literature scientifically, after you complete a workout. Now, there is a type of stretching that you would do pre-workout or prior to having some sort of physical activity. That would be more along the lines of dynamic stretching. So that is people that have been with us since day 1. This is what we've always done. We've had some sort of what we call a warm-up. And we actually do it in 3 different ways. We do a general warm-up, a dynamic warm-up, and a specific warm-up. So in our coaching plan, it's actually known as GDS, so general, dynamic, and specific. General is we just want to get some blood flow, get moving a little bit, and one of the markers that I say to people to know when they've warmed up from the general fashion enough is your heart rate elevated above rest, and do you have a little bit of sweat coming off your brow? That's a good way to know. So this could be walking around the block in the Florida sun. That could actually be a great general warm-up. It could be hopping on the rower, it could be jogging 400 meters, but it's just to tell the body, hey, we're getting ready to do some sort of physical activity. The dynamic stuff is where now we're starting to take the relevant joints through as great a range of motion as is possible for us. So if we're going to be doing a lot of squatting, guess what? I need to open up my hips, knees, and ankles a good bit. If we're going overhead a lot, okay, I need to get the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist primed and ready. If we're doing all of the above, then we want to address all the major joints and segments of the body. And I would say on the dynamic piece, you probably spend about 10 minutes, pick 5 to 6 different movements, do them all for about 10 to 12 reps, and you're going to be dynamically warm. And so that's where the kind of stretching component would come into place. And then specific part of the warm-up, I don't know that I would call this stretching, but I'm already so far down this road, I might as well complete the thought. Specific would be, okay, if we're doing pull-ups, I'm going to actually practice the pull-up. If we're rowing, I'm going to actually practice the rowing stroke. If we're running, I'm actually going to get out there and jog and work on some sort of technical component to do with that movement. So
short answer, when should you stretch?
Before and after a workout.
Okay.
Dynamic before, static after.
Awesome. Is there any, so it says for how long, so you detailed how long a general, dynamic, and specific warm-up should be. Putting all that together, that's probably, you're looking at what, like 15 to 20 minutes? So if you're getting ready for a Metcon, I mean, it's depending on, or a weightlifting piece, depending on what you're doing. So with your general, your dynamic, and your static, or specific, sorry, you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the way that this is going to sound very reductionist, but the way that we think about it here is, if you're going to do a really short, very high intensity type workout, you're going to have a longer warm up to that point. And the illustration that I love to use is, think to 100-meter sprinters in the Olympics. I mean, they might spend 40 minutes preparing the body to put out that much output, versus somebody that is going for a 5K run. You might just do a couple of dynamic stretches, get generally warm and loose, and then go into the actual workout. Fernando actually does bring up an interesting point. I've never seen a lion stretch before chasing a gazelle. So we used to jokingly say this when I was much younger and more nimble, when coach would give us crap for not really maybe taking a warm-up seriously. I would look at him and say, well, cheetahs don't warm up. Just making the assumption that, like, hey, I'm the cheetah and I'm going to just kind of do. However, humans' survival doesn't depend on, you can, and I don't even mean in the modern sense, but, I know this was kind of a joke, but I do think it's worth addressing, is that, think way back, how did we survive? It wasn't by sprinting after something and killing it. Because we can think and strategize, you would just kind of track this animal for a really, really long time over a great distance. And so you could just go out there and run. So we actually are not adapted to jump up and go at maximal intensity. But you could, in theory, if you were, had good posture and position, just go out there for a nice leisurely run.
Yeah, I would say, and something, a good rule of thumb that I've always said is, you shouldn't just get up and stretch, or get up and sprint, rather. You shouldn't just get up and sprint as fast as you can if you can't touch your toes, because you're probably going to see popped hammies, one or two of them. It's up to you.
I've never heard that, but that is actually a great way to look at it. So
I just say that because a couple of years ago, I think we were doing 100-meter sprints outside, and unfortunately, you do see someone, pull a hammy. Normally, no one's popped a hammy, but they'll pull a hammy, and maybe for a week it'll bug them, and they'll be back to normal. And then you'll have them do straight leg march, and they do bent leg march in the warm up. And so it's just, hey, it's a good general rule of thumb is, hey, if you're not able to touch your toes yet, maybe let's work on that a little bit before sprinting. But I like what you bring up about the dynamic and static stretching. I like how you reference literature, because it's kind of what guides everything we do in terms of programming or stretching. And as the programmer, there's a reason that it's not 30 seconds each side when we're doing stretches in the group class, or when it's 20 seconds a side. People probably notice that. It's like, that's such a weird number. And it's because the literature says that once you start hitting that 30 to 60 second mark, research has shown that power development or power distribution just
drops off.
Just drops. So if you're and there's a bunch of physiological factors that get into it. Your muscle spindles get lengthened. Your Golgi tendon organs, right?
GTOs, man, bring it back.
Yeah. So there are things in your muscles that will get too lengthened, and if you lengthen them too much and then try to do, say, a rebounding box jump, you are in for bad news. Pop Achilles. So when we're jumping rope a lot, we're still going to hit some 20 seconds each side of calf stretch, but that's more or less just to get us a little loose. Okay, let's warm it up a little bit, and then again, we're not lions chasing the gazelle. We're not going to go right into double unders, right into box jumps. We're going to have to do some single unders, and then we're going to do some one leg, and then the other, and then we're going to do maybe some single leg hops and pounds or something like that. And then afterwards, that's why we start seeing 2 minutes on each side on maybe the same stretch you warmed up with on a calf stretch or a hamstring stretch, because then, again, research has shown that once those muscle spindles, GTOs, Golgi tendon organs are warm, they are much more susceptible to what the stretching is actually doing. And so that's why we're always doing those post-workout, when most of the time everybody's still sweating and breathing heavy. It's like, okay, let's take advantage of this while we can.
So we're now renaming this podcast to The Science of Coaching.
The science! It's cool. I love talking about all the literature.
Okay, so this is a great segue, actually. It was not planned. I'm just that way.
Oh.
Speaking of, how do you know what to program in terms of movement? Now, I know we talked about the SEM model, sleep, eat, move, manage, but just in terms of movement, how do you know what to program for each individual member? And so this could be in a one-on-one personal training setting, or it could even be in a group. You know, you had a group of 5 or 6 this morning, and they're all individuals. They've all got their own things and goals. So I'll let you kind of start that off.
So I know we have notes here. I'm going to go off track a little bit.
Yeah, those were just kind of my notes. Sorry.
Yeah. So how do I know what to program for each individual, one-on-one or group? Is this for overall, or one specific day, or a specific week, or a month? How are we looking at all the above? How are we looking at this?
Well, let's just take the example of like today in the group, or even maybe yesterday would be a better example because there's a lot of variety in that. But there's already kind of a general workout written. How do you individualize that?
So, of course, one of the first things you have to know are what's the individual's goal.
Yeah.
So, what's their goal, and really, like, where are they at in the specific moment that you're giving them that workout? So, a good example is we'll use Bart, because one, I know we can pick on Bart and he won't care too much, and two, it's just a really good example for what we're talking about today. And I will go to today's programming and then talk about yesterday's, because they are two very, very different workouts. So today we're doing death by calories on the rower, which is for everybody going to be a longer, more endurance type workout. I know Bart's goals are surrounding just living overall healthier life. He's almost 50 years old. He wants to just be able to be healthy.
He's getting up there.
I know, Jesus, man, you're not kidding. Imagine how he feels. And so he wants to just live a healthier life. He wants to be able to do cool things like ride dirt bikes and ride skateboards. Like, I know he rides a skateboard around the neighborhood, like, to get from place to place. So he wants to be able to do that. He likes the idea of being 50 years old and being able to walk on his hands. Like, that's just something that appeals to him, and it doesn't appeal to everybody, that's fine. But he overall just wants to be a healthy person in life. But I also know he cares about his performance in the gym, because we've talked about it. I know that he wants to be the absolute best he can be, because it's going to lead him to a healthier life.
Correct.
So today we have death by calories on the rower. For those that don't know, a death by workout, you're going to do 1 calorie on the first minute, then you're going to rest. 2 on the second, 3 on the third, 4 on the fourth. So eventually it starts to add up. And it gets really, really tough towards the later rounds in the workout, because you're trying to fit all that work in 1 minute on top of the accumulated fatigue. There was an RX Plus option today where we doubled the reps. So it was, hey, you're doing 2 on the first minute, 4 on the second, 6 on the third, so on and so forth. And so that was more for people that kind of want to push and test their rowing skills under that fatigue. It's a lot more intense. It's a lot harder. Little side note, after watching the earlier classes do it, I would recommend everybody does the regular option, the 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just going to overall get a better workout out of it instead of your workout being cut a little short. That's a side note. And so Bart asked me, he said, should I do RX Plus or should I do just regular rowing today? And as you know, like, Bart has a bit of a sinus infection right now. He's not feeling good. He is having trouble breathing. So I said, this is essentially going to cut your workout in half because you're doing double the reps, right? So you're going to cut your workout in half, although it's going to be much more intense. You don't need that right now. You need that much longer endurance. Like, you need airflow into your lungs. Like, you need to filter all of this crap out that's giving you a hard time, causing you to not sleep, and you really just need to breathe.
Yeah.
And so he ended up going with the we'll just call it the RX. I know we talked about that last week, but the standard option, the 1 on the first minute, the 2 on the second, and he soaked his shirt in sweat. He got a great workout, and he was able to breathe, and he wasn't completely, totally smoked afterwards as he would have been with the RX Plus option. So that is my long example to how do you kind of program for someone, for an individual on a specific day. You asked about yesterday's workout. Totally different workout in that we had...
There's a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts. Overhead walking lunge, burpees, more overhead walking lunge, and chest to bar pull-ups. So some pretty high skill movements on top of some burpees. So again, what's someone's goal? Is their goal performance? Is it fat loss? Or is it weight gain, muscle gain? And I won't go into all of it today, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then I'm asking how they feel that day. Does your shoulder hurt? Okay, well maybe we go front rack walking lunge instead of overhead. Does your back hurt? Maybe we don't do something like burpees where you're going to be doing a lot of flexion and a lot of getting up and getting down. Maybe we just do like jumping air squats. Like Coach Emily gave a great modification to an athlete last night. They did jumping air squats because that's still going to get the heart rate high and get the job done. So that's kind of what I'm taking into account when it comes to programming for a specific individual on any given day.
That's a really good way to look at it. In a nutshell, it's first and foremost, we have to understand every single person on an individual level. And I know a lot of times we talk about this from the group perspective, but really the group is just a collection of individuals that all come in here to work out at the same time, right? So it doesn't mean that once you join the group that your goal is defined by what you as the programmer want to get out of it. It's still, okay, here's the generalized program, let's just call it GPP, General Physical Preparedness, but we still have to know what's Allie's goal, what's Natalie's goal, Melissa, Zach, Bart, Brandon, Tina, Erica, Jonathan, Nicole, Deb, Pam. Like, you have to know everybody's goal. And it's funny, you and I were talking about this really quickly in a text message yesterday, but that's what you asked. You know, do the coaches need to know everybody's goal? And my answer is absolutely yes, because on the chance that you're going to see that member, even if they typically don't come to that class, but they walk in, you need to know. Like, it is your responsibility. That is a coach's first and foremost responsibility. What matters more than anything to this person? And then the next piece is understanding where they're at. What is their capability? And then their program is just beyond that. And so I'll give you a great example, and I used to tease people about this all the time in a very, fun-loving way, but 1 rep deadlift day is usually everybody's favorite day because it just makes you feel so powerful. And especially for the guys, but even the girls love to come in and deadlift heavy. And especially if you don't have a very big training age, meaning you haven't been lifting weights in a structured program for a considerable amount of time, it's really easy to, double your deadlift from one, testing period to the next, whether it is a couple weeks, a couple months, or even a year. So the progress that somebody makes in the first, couple of months of going from a fairly sedentary lifestyle to one of active participation in fitness is, it's exponential for that first, let's call it 6 months. So back to the point of the story of me teasing people is they would go from, say, deadlifting 135 pounds, and then all of a sudden they're able to deadlift 200 pounds, and then they come back and we test it again, say in another 6 months. The expectation is to, last time I added 65 pounds, so I'm going to go from 200 to 225, and I have to rein them in and say, hey, listen, even going from 200 to 201 is progress. And more so than that, it's sustainable progress, because I know the next time I can get you to do 202 and 203 and 204. But nobody really wants to admit that those numbers aren't as fun and exciting as going from 200 to 225. But I can make the case that you are much more likely to stay healthy and continue to make progress over the next 20 years. Because the theoretical limit for, let's just say, your deadlift might be 227. And so if you've already hit 225, that's a lot of disappointment that you are setting yourself up for psychologically. So the reason why I tell that story is because somebody's prescription or program on that day needs to meet them where they are and just go a little bit beyond that.
It's an interesting point, because the 1 rep max deadlift is such a great example, because everybody wants to come in and PR on that day. And the reality is it might not be in the cards. But looking at it from a bird's eye view is, okay, no, you lifted, say the heaviest you've lifted, we'll use your example again, is 225. And the next time you come in and you give it your all and you got 215, and that's all you got in you today, 10 pounds less than what you lifted before. But we'll look at it from two different perspectives. The first is your physical capability. So, okay, you might not be lifting as heavy, but you're able to do chest to bar, and you've never done those before. And that was a huge goal of yours. So you're able to do chest to bar pull-ups now, or you're able to get your first pull-up. Maybe you're running a mile for the first time ever, right? You're able to run a mile straight and maybe even do it under 10 minutes. Like, that's incredible. But even from a physiological perspective, it's like maybe your blood pressure is lower. Maybe you've lost 30 or 40 pounds. Maybe your blood triglyceride levels or your cholesterol are in a healthy range. There are all these things that we're not thinking about when we don't PR. It's the only thing we're thinking about is, oh my goodness, I need to be able to do that. When, like you said, the buzzword that we always love to use, and I'm going to say it's a buzzword, but I'm still going to continue to say it, is longevity. It's like, that's what we're going for, because ultimately, and we can say this till our faces turn blue, is nobody came in here, sat next to us or across from us and said, I want to deadlift my theoretical limit of 227 pounds. What's the program you got for that? Nobody. Not one. I've not wanted to run into one person yet.
No, and that's part of the challenge when you do continually attach performance to progress. It is a marker, but it can't be the only marker, because I don't know who said this or if it's a book or something, or maybe I'm just going to trademark the term, but the phrase is out there that what matters gets measured, right? And what gets measured gets managed. But not everything that gets measured matters. And not everything that matters can you measure. So can you measure things like your PRs in the gym, or your times and things like that? Yeah, and that stuff can matter to a certain extent. But I would wager a guess that more than half the people that come here and go to CFG or get a service from CFG probably don't actually care too much about that. And that's not discounting the people that do, because I do, but I have to make sure that I'm not biasing what my likes and desires and needs are for the global CFG, right, for everybody.
Yeah.
The other note too that I had is like there's also a spectrum of movement that I've got on a spreadsheet here when it comes to knowing where somebody sits on this kind of continuum. So if you've got somebody that has just been sedentary and they have put on a lot of weight, and all these biomarkers of health that we know of, blood pressure, heart rate, what are your arteries looking like, what does your blood paneling look like, and all these things are kind of depressed and not looking the healthiest, and you combine that with some sort of sedentary, long-term sedentary behavior, you probably don't put them through anything what looks like yesterday's workout. You probably say, okay, for the next 20 minutes, I want you to walk around the building, get some vitamin D, because that's probably going to elicit a very similar physiologic response to me doing the workout that I did yesterday inside the gym, right? And so there's this, really, differing continuum all the way up to the person that, and so this is the opposite end where they are kind of like that fully autonomous person. I'll give you a great example of that. So everybody that listens is pretty familiar with Jay. He's been to the games a couple of times, insanely fit. He's also in his 50s as well. Well, I know we were talking about Bart. He's not there yet, but he might as well be there. So Jay's in his 50s, incredibly fit, but there are also periods where I'm not actually programming for him. So, for instance, on Sunday night, when I sent him his programming, we had already finished up a 3-week block of intense training. So Sunday night, my email, and I didn't pull it up here, but I know what I said because I've done it multiple times over the past couple of years. Hey, this is a deload week. I don't want you to do anything terribly stressful for your body, and I want you to enjoy what it is that you are doing. So guess what? He doesn't email me every day and say, oh my gosh, what can I do? I just did 20 push-ups. Should I do more? Should I do less? What should I be eating? No, he knows what he needs to do, and he's not going to overdo it. So that is kind of like the other end of the spectrum is, having that self-sustaining responsibility is the whole, teach a man to fish type thing. He knows what he needs to be doing. Now, why on the flip side of that coin is, okay, well then why does he need me? Because he does need accountability on the other end when he is training specifically for a performance endeavor and not just for life in general. If he was just training for life in general, I'd probably make the argument that he doesn't need me to be programming for him every day. He's going to get up and be active no matter what. But when there is a performance or a very high-level performance-based goal, then that's where somebody does need to be monitoring all those things that you just don't have, or he doesn't have time to do.
And like you said,
sorry, that was a long rant.
No, that's good. It's good to hear that. It's like you said, he doesn't have the time to do it. I would think I would have the time to program for myself because I have dedicated time where I sit down and I program for the group every week. And who's to say I can't take an extra, half an hour to do it for myself? But I know that there are biases that come into play. So,
correct.
Like you said, that's part of the accountability. Is like having someone that's going to hold you accountable to do the things you don't want to do to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And I think a lot of that comes down to exercise, and it's something I mentioned over the last couple months that it's something I have to wrap my head around because that feeling that I'm going to feel when I do that death by calorie row workout today, I crave it. I love that feeling. I love gasping for air and breathing heavy because I know what it does for me. Mm-hmm. But I have to convince myself and remind myself that just for I would say most people nowadays, getting out of bed and getting into the gym is awful. It's an awful idea to get up and
That's a big ask.
Yeah, it's like I have to go and exercise. Like I have to put myself in this terrible place, this uncomfortable position, but they still do it because they know what it's going to do for them. Meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, I love it. You want to work out again? You want to do it again? You want to do it again? Let's do it. And so it's going back to what we were saying about Jay. I mean, top 0.1%. One of the fittest dudes in the world in his age division. It was, there's still somebody there, a coach holding him accountable to do the things he doesn't want to do.
Right.
Nobody wants to, come spend money to make their health better, right? We all wish our health. I wish I could sit at home in front of a computer screen, play my video games, and be the healthiest I could be, but that's not the case.
It's not.
Yeah? So, and it comes down to it's the same with business coaches too. It's like nobody wants to invest in a business coach that's going to tell them, here's what you have to do about your business, because ultimately we all wish that
it would just work itself out.
Exactly. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider. But you also mentioned that Jay is very autonomous and that you can say, okay, deload week, go do your thing, talk to you next Sunday, right? And you trust that he's going to make the right choices.
Yep.
Is that something you think everybody should strive to achieve, that sort of autonomy when it comes to health and wellness?
I don't know that this will be a popular answer, but I think it's everybody's responsibility, actually, to get to that point. The reason is because I'm a big believer in personal responsibility, and accountability to yourself ultimately plays into it. Now, that's not to say that the value that we provide in terms of accountability is not warranted, because it certainly is, especially when somebody is starting out on a brand new journey. They do definitely need somebody there to guide them along and show them the way and kind of nudge them back onto the path that they should be on, and not get caught up and not allow that person to get caught up in, okay, well, I said my goal was this, but then it's squirrel and rabbit, and I'm chasing all these things that I see. It's the coach's responsibility to say, no, you told me that your priority was to be able to play with your kids when you're 85. Well, beating yourself into the ground every single day and feeling like crap is not going to get you there. And it's our responsibility to get people to that place where they don't always have to turn to you or me or to any of the other coaches. Because here's the reason why, and I actually had this connection when I was thinking about this yesterday, is if it's always reliant, if somebody's progress and success is always reliant upon what I tell them to do or you tell them to do, it's akin to way back in the day when I was the only one doing all the things. There's only so much bandwidth that I have to positively affect somebody else's well-being long-term. But now, when we bring on coaches, guess what? I can positively impact you and all the other coaches who can then, let's just say there's actually a scientific phenomenon known as Dunbar's number that says that human beings are capable of hanging on to about 150 really deep, meaningful relationships. Basically, you can have some really good, meaningful influence over 150 people. So my limit is 150. Your limit's 150. But so is Steph and Emily and Jean and Margaret and everybody that's a part of our team, right? If it's just me, the limit's 150. But if it is 150 for each of us, now guess what? But what also has to happen is, like, you have to become autonomous enough as a coach to be able to positively impact. So where does that go in terms of the clients or the members, or in this case Jay or anybody else that you're referring to, is if I'm the only one that they can look to instead of themselves, then how are we ever going to take this outside of that one person? Everybody wants the world to be a better place. Well, first it starts with you. You need to learn how to navigate that for yourself, and then you can influence your other circle. Well, guess what? We think that it's a pretty good idea to influence people in the sleep, eat, move, manage categories. I think if we did that, love your neighbor as yourself, this whole world would be a better place. But if I have to continually tell you how to do those things, then it's never going to happen in the greater community and thus the world. So that's why I say I think it's ultimately our responsibility to empower people to long-term make those decisions on their own.
So I guess an interesting question, something that just kind of comes to my head, is say somebody works out with us for 5 years. They work out with us and they do nutrition coaching for 5 years, and we teach them all we know, and eventually they become autonomous enough that they build their own home gym, they buy their own food, they are able to become 100% autonomous, like in a perfect world. I know nobody's going to be able to do that, but they don't need a coach. Say, again, in a perfect world, all 100% people that come through our doors do that. Do we just kind of act as a filter? Okay, next group of people, and of course it's over time, next group of people, let's bring them through, and as soon as they're autonomous, we can, send them on, we've essentially taught the man how to fish, send them on the way, and so we're just continually changing all these people's lives? Or is it, we hold on to these people, and even though they're autonomous, they still trust us to be their coaches for health and wellness?
Yeah, and maybe I'll ask the question that you don't want to ask, or that maybe you haven't taken it the further step. Maybe the question that you really want to ask is, does that mean that these clients don't need us anymore and thus don't pay membership?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
They need us.
Yes. I ultimately think that if I do my best job as a coach, that is the eventuality, that they don't actually need to come in and hear for 20 years, knees out, chest up, you need to eat good foods, you need to spend time with your family, you need to prioritize, you need to, all those things. Yeah, like I think that I'm doing my job if I can get somebody to that point where then the conversations that we're having are like the ones that you and I are having. We're just hanging out. And I think what starts to happen is now we've created this kind of network of people, a community, that those are the ones that definitely want to continue to stay involved, because think about what we've done for them in their life and how impactful that is to give somebody that at the end of the day, they are relying on themselves, and thus they can go out and make the community a better place, right? And this is something that I talk to gym owners a lot about too. It's really boils down to a fundamental difference in mindset. I have an extreme case of the abundance mindset. There are always going to be an infinite number of people that need help, and it's our job to help them find us. So if the versus the other mindset is like the scarcity mindset. So if I think, okay, we're going to get our 150 people and nobody is allowed to try to steal this person away, and I want them for life, and client or member for life, and all these things, I just don't honestly think that that's actually the right thing. That, like you said, yeah, it could be that these 150 people come through and we can lead them to this place of autonomy and they don't quote unquote need us, but let's say that down the road they decide, you know what, I've really got a knack for this health and wellness and fitness on my own thing, but I want to do a triathlon. Okay, now that's very different than like the typical health and wellness, right? Those are two different avenues, and I think that's an important distinction of training for like a sport versus just training for life. So there's that. Where was I going with that? Man, I kind of lost my train of thought, what I was saying.
Still good. Still good information to say. If you think of it, interrupt me. But I have another question.
Yes, go ahead. I will circle back to it.
What if, maybe my question will help you. What if you said...
Oh, no, never mind.
Yes, you got it!
Okay, I got it. Okay, so here's the thing, right? And I know you as head coach or Steph as GM or any of our other coaches are thinking, holy crap, he's on this podcast telling people that they don't really need us, and he's going to crater the business. What is he doing? No, that's not the case at all. Guys, I live to coach people, and I have another company called Two Brain Coaching, so I fully believe in the importance of and the responsibility that we have as coaches. But what you have to realize is that everybody's on a different journey. So I don't think that there's a definite timeline to get somebody to autonomy. But I do think that ultimately, whatever that journey is, somebody could come in and it takes them 6 months. It could take somebody 6 years. It could take somebody 12 years, right? But the goal is that we are educating them in an effort to get to a point where, yeah, they don't need us in the way that most people think that they need a coach right now.
And how is that? So just real quick, if you could sum it up in like a 1 minute tagline, how do people need a coach now versus how will they need it when they are considered like fully autonomous? What's the difference? What does that look like?
Oh man. So I don't have a direct answer to that, but I do have some ideas on it. Number one, I think that there is a information overload out there, and information is good, knowledge is better, wisdom is kind of like the ultimate that you want is, you know, to really understand the simplicity of things. Once you've dove really deep into something, be able to distill it down to 1 or 2 things like sleep, eat, move, manage. Like, get those 4 things right, and that's really, you know, what you need.
Yeah.
You know? But what do they need now is they need a filter. They need somebody to say, okay, do this. They need somebody to say, but do you really know what healthy eating is? But do you really know what movement should be doing? But do you really know that you are not defined by what the leaderboard or the scoreboard or anything else? Because you're not in here for anybody else. You're in here for you. So, and I think that's the role of the coach, is to kind of bring people back to center, to help them, you know, determine, okay, you're telling me that this is a priority in your life, but your actions are not matching your ambitions. So I think the role of the coach is to maybe have a dose of truth, and then education, and then when you show me that you can model those 4 pillars, then you're good.
What happens if somebody doesn't want to do that on their own, ever? What if it's just not how someone's hardwired? Like, I never want to, like, I always want something, not myself personally, but one always wants to have a coach there for them. They have no interest in becoming autonomous. I know you said every coach and client has a responsibility to make themselves that way, but what if somebody's like, I don't want to. That's not my thing. There's a reason I go to this coach for this and that.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts on that. The first one would be, then maybe this isn't the right place.
Really?
Yeah, because part of what we do and part of what, at least the way that I see coaching, is education. And education leads to empowerment. And if you're telling me today that that's not what you want, then guess what? You're not going to like what we're providing, because that is what we are providing. Otherwise, and I think I said this to you yesterday, you're just, coaches then become reduced to choreographers and cheerleaders. And I can go anywhere to hire those.
Right.
So, but, the other thing is, I think if people took the time, and I know I'm asking for a lot because that's the one resource that nobody can ever get more of. I can always earn more money. People are always concerned about money. You can always go and earn more money. You cannot go and earn more time. So I understand what I'm asking of people here. But if your gut reaction is, nope, that's not what I want, I would challenge you to take the time, as long as it takes, to sit and ask yourself some deep, hard questions on what do you really want? Whether it's in life, in your personal life, your business life, ask those deep questions and continue. Why do I want that? Why do I want that? Why do I want that? And then I would wager a guess, a pretty strong one, because this is what, again, the literature shows, is that, ultimately people do strive for three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Those are kind of the three things, like if you go back and look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and self-actualization is at the top, but after basic like physiologic needs of like food, shelter, companionship, that's the next thing, right? But it's hard for people, especially in this world of just constant bombardment of everything, for people to get to that point, because they look and see, we've talked about this, like the quick fix thing. I want to do this or I want to do that. Cool. But really what you're telling me is you want to live long and prosper. I want to play with my kids when I'm older. Okay, so what does the 50-year program to do that look like?
I think about people that come in, we use the free intro session as an example a lot on the show, and people that sit across from me and Stephanie and Emily all the time, and nobody really comes in and says, and nobody will outright ask the questions verbatim, but say someone comes in and they want to gain 100 pounds of muscle or lose 100 pounds of fat, right? It's not, okay, what do I do? Tell me what to do. It's most of the time, how do I do it? Come in here and how do I do it? And how is a much more educational question than what. Because I could tell you how to do a thruster. Get the bar on the front rack, squat down, and press it up. Or I could tell you what a thruster is. It's a squat to a press, right? So now we're making it a little bit more specific when we get into the how, right? But then when we tell you the how and the why, it's like, okay, so here's why you were going to be doing 3 group classes a week with some nutrition coaching, with our ongoing nutrition program. Here's why you're doing a thruster today. Here's why you are making your room 72 degrees at night instead of 73. That's when they'll learn on accident, right? So
right.
You're slowly just making them less and less. What's the opposite of autonomous? Like, I'm actually wondering what's the, I don't want to say like reliant, but yeah, reliant on a coach.
Yeah, I think that could be it. I think reliant would be a good kind of antonym for that.
And just to kind of move on to the note we have here, it does go back to something we talked about 2 weeks ago with the characteristics that we really look for in a client, and the ones that you talked about. And that is patience, curiosity, and consistency. I know we have that in the note on our podcast outline you wanted to, or if you feel like you've kind of talked about that enough or not enough. But you know, what do you have to say about that when it comes to patience, curiosity, and consistency in a client when it comes to autonomy?
So something that just resonated in my mind hearing you talk was really with the autonomy thing, and what if somebody doesn't want it. I think what you have to get to the root of is what is your intention. And I know maybe that's a different way of saying like what's your goal, but I think intention taps into something a little bit differently. Like, what is your intention with showing up today doing this thing? And the coach's job is to tie that into the bigger picture, right? So what is your ultimate intention? Is it to compete? No. For everybody listening except for Jay, right? Like ultimately, you know. So if your intention again is what we talked about earlier, play with the kid. I love using that example because it's something that I think about, except I stretch it out to like 95, like being able to run around with my grandkids or great grandkids at 95, and rather than them pushing grandpa around in a wheelchair, like, I want to be active with them. I want to be mentally, you know, acute and aware and all these things. So, okay, so what is the intention? So where does the other piece that you asked about, well, I don't know that you actually asked a question, but it was kind of a segue into, or an answer for our next question, which is, what's the best program for, and then insert whatever your goal is, right? And so the first piece to that is, well, the best program is the one that you're going to stick to. Well, guess what the word for that is actually? Consistency.
So you're telling me comp train, the amazing CrossFit programming, is not better than my group fitness programming?
No, it's definitely not.
Well,
Unless
I'm being facetious.
Oh, I know, but I would say unless people don't trust, you know, who is doing the programming or who is doing the coaching,
right,
because they haven't built the authority, right?
Right.
So the best program is the one that you're going to stick to long term. And just as a disclaimer, it's not going to be the one that just kicks the crap out of you every single day. So there's that. So number one, it has to be, you know, a consistent one. And what we're learning is that if it doesn't include elements of sleep, eat, and managing your stress, that's not going to be best for you, because all those elements play into each other. Our tagline at Two Brain Coaching is everything is everything. That they all inform and influence one another. Sleep, eat, move, and manage. Sleep better, you manage your stress better, you move better, you make better choices in your nutrition. You reverse that order, you make poor nutrition choices, your movement looks like garbage, you're stressed out, and then you can't sleep at night. Right? So all that stuff matters. So the best program for whatever your goal is, I don't care what it is, the one you're actually going to stick to, and the one that ultimately teaches you to fish. Why? So you can teach others to fish. That's how we create large-scale, sustainable change to make this world a better place for everybody.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Do you think there is, I don't want to say a market because I think that attaches a very monetary connotation to it, but do you think there is a place in the world for, like I mentioned, comp train or something like street parking, where people are paying for that movement piece? And in our model, in the Two Brain Coaching model, your model, the SEM model, that's a quarter of what's going on. Do you think there is, I'll just use the term, a market or a place in the world for a program that is, we'll say, consumable, sellable, that includes all those, that isn't coaching? Now I know coaching kind of follows it, but do you think there is a program that
more templated?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Or do you think?
I think that there is, but I don't think that it's the right thing to do. So this is, man, I sound like such an old guy whenever I talk about, you know, the goods and the bads of like technology these days. Technology has done some amazing things, but it's also forced its way into the fitness space in such a way that everybody is tied to their Whoops and Apple Watches and all this kind of stuff. and tech sees it as a way to get dollars. And so, is there a market for it? Absolutely. I have no doubt that if we put something out there that said, okay, day one, sleep, eat, move, manage, here's what to do, that people would pay for it. But I think it would not be the right thing without the proper foundation of education through a coach. And this is not to be deliberately self-serving to us as coaches. It's just truly the way that I feel, is you do need to have some foundation of that in order to make that template most effective, right? But to just kind of take this thought exercise a little bit further, as I hear myself say that, I think that ultimately the most effective approach of that template is going to be the one that you create through autonomy of yourself, because guess what? You're going to stick to it.
I 100% agree with you. I think
So is there a market for it? Yeah. Could money be made there? Absolutely. Do I think it's the right thing to do? No.
it comes down to the individual again. You know, starting where we started at the beginning of this conversation is how do you program a specific workout for an individual on a given day? And it comes down to knowing that person's goals. And if I'm talking to my mom or Deb or Ed at the 5:30 a.m. class, and I know that they're sleeping 6 hours a night, and that's the most they're going to get, I'm not going to give them a program that says, make sure you get your 9.5 hours tonight, because it's not applicable to them.
And they're going to feel like they failed you, and they failed themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you
So
said.
what would you say to them instead? If you still want to move the needle of sleep for them, but quality or quantity of sleep isn't going to budge right now, what do you do?
Quantity of sleep isn't budging.
Right.
Well, you got to ask questions. You got to ask a lot of questions. So it is something you mentioned. Tech. That is something that we talked about with my sleep quality. That I like that the Whoop asked. I'd ask questions like that. How much time are you spending time on your phone? Yes. Right. How much? You know, everything we've talked about the last couple of weeks. What's the temperature? What's this? What's that? Do you have a TV in your room? Is it on when you fall asleep? Is it off? This, that. And then you can go with that with sleep, eating, movement, and managing. That's another podcast.
Yeah, so basically, I guess the gist is, okay, if I can't get you to move the needle on quantity of sleep, then I'm going to look at quality of sleep.
Yeah, we're going to look at
temperature, lighting, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Cool.
And like we talked about, small sustainable change focused on longevity, moving the needle just a little bit from 73-degree room to a 72-degree room. And if you wake up feeling 1% more rested, 1% across the whole year isn't 365%. It's a lot more than that, you know, because it's exponential. So, yeah, that's probably what I would do.
It's probably a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, I was looking at the time. I looked at it 12 minutes ago, and I was like, or 13 minutes ago, and I was like, man, we are way at an hour, when it was right before that we were saying, oh, we're at 20 minutes, and now we're at an hour and 13 minutes.
Just like that.
Yeah.
So next week, I will be out of town.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to negotiate with my boss a way to maybe we could do a Zoom live in the Facebook group to keep this training rolling.
That would be super cool. That gives me 1 week to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So I got to figure that out, and then we'll make sure we keep that up. And if not, they get me for 75 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah, that would not be good.
Whoa.
I'll just say, hey guys, it's me. Go listen to old episodes.
Right.
But to everybody that watched us, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Thank you for listening. Thank you for going along with all of our rants today. Hopefully it was I hope that they go away with some deep thoughts to think, some things to ponder.
And ask questions.
Yeah.
Discuss this with us, because we'd love to talk about it more and get your question on the show, or in the perfect world, get you here at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning to talk with us on the show.
It would be cool to have like a little round table about it.
Yeah, we need your
The little, yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. We need no, we don't need anything. We need everybody to enjoy this episode. We need
Like, comment, share, review.
We need likes, comments, shares, reviews. We need everybody to feel like they did an awesome job listening to this, which you did. And go out there, make someone's day, have a great day. Thanks for listening. Do something good. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, guys. These just keep getting better and better.
Oh, something's wrong with this thing here. Man. Is it still on? Am I still showing on my live? I think it might be, but I can't get out of this screen. So people are witnessing all this. Yes. Ah! What is wrong with this thing? It won't go away. And I'm afraid.
Can you force quit it?
Yeah, but I think it'll kill the whole video.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, people, you're just going to follow me around for a little bit while I try to X out of this thing. This will probably be the most entertainment they get.
Right.
Oh.